G'day and welcome to ReDriven. Now, this is a massive call, but when brand new on paper, the Audi RS3 might just be the perfect car. Incredible performance, classy aesthetic, a premium badge. It's even practical and comfortable when you're not rearranging your idea of what physics are when you're punting it down some deserted road. But these are still just a compact European car. And as we found in some of our other videos, European cars, while good when new, when they're secondhand and have thousands of kilometers on them, can go horribly wrong. So which is it with the Audi RS3? Are these still awesome, or are they just a horrible disaster waiting to happen? Like, what actually goes wrong with them? What do they like to live with on a daily basis? What do they cost to own and operate? But most importantly, should you buy one? Let's find out. Now, before we get deep into this video, I have to admit something to you guys. I'm going to do my absolute best to remain impartial in this video, but I genuinely love the Audi RS3. For me, this is one of my all-time favorite cars. But the thing is, here on ReDriven, when you always say it's totally okay to love a shit car, I just hope this isn't a shit car. Anyway, look, in this video, we're going to be focusing on the Australian variants of the 2015 to 2020 8V Audi RS3. This one. But if you're not watching this from Australia, don't panic or freak out, because everything that we're going to be going over, it should relate to Audi RS3s in your local market. Also, to keep this video as objective as we possibly could, we've reached out to multiple RS and Audi owners groups, we've spoken to Audi technicians, we've trawled through what feels like hours of surveys and reports and forums. So this video, it's the culmination of all of that information. Also, have you noticed how I've parked this car exactly like an Audi RS owner would? Now, just in case you've been living under a rock, the RS3, it's the hottest of all of the Audi A3s, but at the same time, it's the baby of Audi's RS lineup of performance cars. It was initially available here in Australia from 2015 as purely a hatchback, or as a sportback as Audi call it, but as of 2017, this arrived, the sedan, or as Audi call it, the saloon. 2017 was also when the RS3 received a midlife update, but you know what, to kind of cover this in more detail, rather than me nattering on about it to camera, how about we cut to a wonderful B-roll montage that Sam behind the camera has put together, and I'll provide a voiceover. Great idea, mate. Now, speaking of that midlife refresh in 2017, calling it just a refresh might be something of an understatement, as it was a good deal more than that. Along with a load of significant exterior cosmetic updates, interior trim changes, and updated levels of equipment and tech, the turbocharged 2.5-litre 5-cylinder engine was now 26 kilograms lighter than before, thanks to a switch to aluminium for the block and the use of magnesium for the sump. The combination of a new higher peak power figure of 294 kilowatts, which was up from 270 kilowatts, and a lift in torque to 480 newton meters, which was up from 465 newton meters, and an improved dual clutch transmission, resulted in the RS3 dropping a couple of tenths off its 0 to 100 kilometre an hour time, getting it down to 4.1 seconds. Or maybe even something starting with a 3 if your chakra is in alignment and you're happy to launch your little cotton socks off. The RS3 achieves these superb acceleration times thanks to Audi's Quattro all-wheel drive system, lowered performance-focused suspension, and sticky performance rubber wrapping 19-inch rims, while the stopping power is supplied by 8-piston calipers gripping into huge rotors up the front. These were also available in a carbon ceramic option for a mere $9,000. Speaking of options, in typical Audi style, the range of extra bits and pieces you could add to the RS3 were extensive to say the least. Tick all of the boxes, and an RS3 topping 100,000 Australian dollars was easily achieved. But in saying that, being the flagship of the Audi A3 range, the levels of standard equipment and features were excellent. And look, it wouldn't be an Audi unless it was also available in a range of special and limited editions. And look, while we'd love to go over every specific detail of every upgrade and feature and all that sort of stuff, it'd just take hours. It would get really boring in this video. So instead of doing that, we have grabbed all of that information and we've put it in our incredibly handy and totally free ReDriven cheat sheets. Our cheat sheets are invaluable as they provide a full breakdown of the car's model range, its common problems, what you need to look out for before handing over your hard-earned cash, how much of that cash you should be handing over, and so much more. Check it out at redriven.com or in the link below. Now guys, if you already own one of these things, or you're some sort of an Audi RS3 expert, and you've noticed in this video that we've missed something major, please let us know in the comments. We're going to do our best to cover as much of the car as we possibly can, but if we've missed something, yeah, let us know in the comments. Okay, so how's the exterior? Well, to make this video even harder for me to remain objective, this one is in Nardo Grey. Nardo Grey just happens to be my favourite car colour of all time, but I promise I'm going to do my best not to, fanboy too much. Okay, from a design aspect, in sedan form, I absolutely love it. Even in the hatchback, sportback, from the front and directly from the back, adore it. I love the headlights, I love all these intakes, I love this really strong horizontal kind of line around the shoulder line. Looks fantastic from the front. But in the Sportback, from directly from the side, or even like the side rear 3/4, I kind of feel like it's almost a bit too big to be a proper looking hatchback, but then not long enough to be a wagon either. Like, it's funny because the Golf R, it looks fantastic as a hatchback, obviously, but yeah, the Sportback, it just doesn't, I don't know what it is, it just doesn't grab me as much. Now, in terms of things to watch out for if you are in the market to buy one of these, look, these are not an inexpensive car. We'll get to what they cost in a little bit. So therefore, most of the owners are generally pretty financially stable and would have these comprehensively insured. So if it were to have an accident, you'd hope that it would have been repaired to the highest possible quality. However, it is still a very high performance car, and it's a performance car that most owners use on a daily basis. So when you first look at it, just go over the whole car, look at all the panels. They should match in color, and the paint should match in texture as well. All these panel gaps, they should be absolutely precise. Anything kind of plasticky, that should all feel really solid and well put together. The big one is spray paint overspray. If you see any overspray in under here, up under the wheel arches, pop the bonnet, look around the engine bay, any spray paint overspray on an Audi RS3, really bad sign. Even in terms of wheels and tyres, make sure you check all the wheels for, look, signs of gutter rash is going to be okay, they are repairable, but these are expensive rims to replace. Any big chunks out of the wheel, that's not a good sign. Even in terms of the tyres, look, these are, again, it's a high performance car, but they only get the performance to the ground if it's wearing premium tyres. If the one you're looking at has like cheap, no-name, dodgy tyres, or the tyres don't match around all four corners, not a good sign. And finally, in terms of the wear pattern on the tyres, it should be even across all four tyres. If it's all over the place, best case scenario, it just needs a wheel alignment, but worst case scenario, it might have suspension damage. Also, if the tyres are really heavily worn on the outside of the front tyres, it means that the driver's turning into corners way too fast, way too regularly. It's a good sign that they're a shit driver. Now, for all the common faults and what goes wrong with the exterior, interior, and mechanically, we'll get to all of that in a second. Okay, so how's the interior? Guys, this is an Audi. How do you think the interior is? It's fantastic. Audi just nail interior design time and time and time again. Some people do accuse the RS3 and even the S3 as just being exorbitantly priced Golf Rs, but this is clearly a very much more upmarket interior. There's nothing wrong with the Golf R interior, but this feels quite a bit more special. But in saying that, except for the fabulous seats and a couple of other small minor details, it does feel almost identical to an S3 in here. That's not a bad thing, the S3 still looks amazing, but I don't know, for the money, I feel like it should feel a bit more RS. I love all this like textured aluminium up here and this plastic bit here. It almost feels like someone's got some old dried paint and like an old paintbrush and just slopped it on, but I kind of like it. Feels nice, looks great, love that. Now the quality of the materials are, typical Audi again. Everything's lovely. Heaps of soft touch plastics everywhere, Alcantara, lovely leather all over the place. Even the ergonomics are fantastic, heaps of adjustability, but as far as wear and tear goes, it's interesting. Like the leather on the seats, they are starting to get pretty shiny. That obviously can be, rejuvenated back to its original quality. The Alcantara on the steering wheel, that's gone completely smooth. Again, should be able to be brought back to life. But then there's little things like there's some of the paint down here, that's starting to almost like bubble and peel a little bit. There's quite a few scratches and dings on this bit of plastic here. It's just, I don't know, it's just not aging beautifully. Also, if OCD is an issue for you at all, this is going to bug you. On all the air vents here, they all go from 3 o'clock to 12 o'clock easily, but on the driver's side, it only goes from 3 o'clock to 1 o'clock. Why? Is that a standard thing, RS fans, or is that just a stuff up? Also, this is more like a text section thing, but we're talking wear and tear here, so I'll bring it up. The screen, I've got it on its brightest setting, but it still feels really dull. Like driving around today, like today's a really glary and bright day, and I can sometimes barely see what the screen's saying. Okay, in the back seat, I'm exactly 0.09% of the length of the Nürburgring. This is in my driving position, and comfort-wise, not too bad. There's like, you know, decent amount of footroom. My knees are up against the back of the seat here. But because the roof line is quite low and the glass house is quite small and it's all very dark in here, it does feel a little bit claustrophobic. As far as wear and tear goes, pretty bloody good, to be honest. I don't think many people sit back here. Leather's in really good condition. There are a few little scratches on the backs of the seats here. Alcantara feels really nice. Yeah, it's good. Good for wear and tear. How's the tech? Well, look, being the top of the line Audi A3 and also, you know, being at most sort of 7 years old, the tech isn't too bad. The MMI, or the infotainment system, on the earlier pre-facelift models, it is starting to feel its age a little bit. But to delve into a touch more detail, here's me doing another voiceover. From the very beginning, and avoiding ticking any of those tempting options boxes, the RS3 will come equipped with dual zone climate control, Audi's multiple drive select modes, a reversing camera, park assist, parking sensors, Bluetooth connectivity, GPS, LED headlights and taillights, heated front seats, a multi-function screen, steering wheel mounted controls, digital radio, rain sensing wipers, push button start, a trip computer, voice recognition, and a 10-speaker stereo. Which sounds pretty bloody good, but in terms of post-facelift tech and optional extras, well, adding the RS Performance package gained magnetic ride suspension, a superb 14-speaker Bang & Olufsen sound system, and a host of cosmetic accessories. While the likes of a powered sunroof, extra safety and driver equipment, and the fixed-back race-style bucket seats were also available, depending on the owner's propensity to hemorrhage cash. Post-update, the RS3 received a 12.3-inch virtual cockpit screen, the fold-away 7-inch infotainment screen was improved, and the sat-nav system now featured Google Maps as the overlay. Plus, Apple CarPlay and Android Auto also became available. I must say as well, as far as usability goes, it's great to use, super intuitive. But for all of the details of which RS3 gets what tech, just jump on ReDriven.com and check out that cheat sheet, or click in the link in the description below. Okay, how's the practicality? Well, I'll tell you what, the hatchback is far more practical. I had the hatchback as a press car when it was new and it's super practical. This, decent sized boot, but my God, I'm uncomfy in here. Practicality in the second row, you do have door bins, but it's near impossible to get into them without dislocating your wrist or breaking your arm to get to it. You've got a couple of nets back here in case you go fishing or you need to put your ReDriven RS3 script somewhere. Got your own air vent, your own power outlet, and you've got an armrest with a couple of cup holders. That don't seem to work. No, it's buggered. Anyway, yeah, cup holders. That's it for practicality in the second row. And practicality up front, you've got a cubby hole here for your various colognes and eau de toilettes. You've got that smells delicious. You've got 2 cup holders up here that have little fingers to hold pretentious small coffees like a macchiato, piccolo, or espresso. Nothing wrong with them. You've got a spot for your phone here. You've got a pretty decent sized glove box. That smells fantastic. You've got good sized door bins to hold your various Rolex watches. And I think that's it. There's nothing. Oh yeah, no, nothing. Oh yeah, there's a little hidden cubby hole under the seat. How cool is that? Only on the driver's side. That's sick. Nothing up there, nothing down here. I think that's it for practicality. Oh, and the net. There's a net in case you go fishing and you need to keep your fish anywhere. There's a net down there. Excellent. Okay, so what goes wrong with these things? Well, look, we're going to get to the mechanical stuff in a second, but let's start with the exterior. Now, some RS3s with a sunroof, this one doesn't have a sunroof, the sunroof, when it's cracked open a little bit, they're known to creak and rattle. Also, there are some reports on earlier models that the rear suspension can get a bit noisy on rougher roads. Also, I don't know if this is a common RS3 thing, but on this example, the doors don't really line up properly. Actually, to all the RS3 owners, is this a common thing? Let us know in the comments. Inside, and look, this might come as a bit of a surprise to those of you that think, Audi quality is absolutely faultless. There are plenty of reports of rattles populating the interior. It's mainly around the door cards of the front doors, around the glove box area, and around the rear seats where they kind of click and attach to the C-pillars. Now, before we get into the mechanical issues that the RS3 can suffer from, I've got to ask a favor, guys. If you're enjoying this video, can you please hit the like, subscribe, and bell buttons? And if you're enjoying ReDriven, can you just share ReDriven content as much as you possibly can? The more you hit those buttons and the more you share our stuff, the more of this content we can make for you. Hopefully, that's a good thing. Okay, now mechanically, what goes wrong with these? Well, look, I'd love to tell you, but I can't because I'm not qualified to, because I'm not a mechanic, but Jim is.
The 5-cylinder engines in these things are tough and they're capable of making huge horsepower when they're modified. And maybe it's because they're engineered to take such a pounding. Well, maybe that's why they're more reliable as a daily driver. They're definitely less prone to some of the common problems we see in their slower Audi siblings. They do have a few problems, and interestingly, when they do have issues, they're really not much more expensive to repair. Service costs are pretty much on par with the similarly sized Audis and Volkswagens, but I strongly recommend you service them at least every 10,000 Ks, and even better still, every 5,000 Ks. The brakes though, pads and rotors on these things are significantly more expensive than most other hot hatches, and I would definitely recommend looking at aftermarket alternatives. They're much cheaper. Tyres too, they wear out fast on these things, especially if you're putting it on the track every now and then. And a fun fact with the tyres on these, some of them have staggered tyres front to rear, and counterintuitively, the wider tyres are actually on the front, and I have seen some people get it arse about, so just keep an eye out for that. The DSG transmissions are strong too, but it's imperative you don't miss the services. Some people do complain about them being jerky at slow speeds, but that's just how they are. And I would also ask, well, why are you going slow anyway? Really, come on. Things to remember, these are a performance car, and people love to modify them and people love to thrash them, which is exactly what they're meant for. But just because they're expensive, don't assume they've been well cared for. Make sure the services are right up to date, and make sure any mods that have been done by someone who knows what they're doing.
Is it safe? Well, despite the fact that it has enough performance to rearrange your internal organs and make you question your own morals, yes, it is very safe. Even aside from the plethora of safety tech and equipment this has, it is built on a quattro all-wheel drive platform, which means it has a copious amount of grip until it doesn't, and that'll only happen at devastating speeds. But look, for an overview of what safety equipment you can expect in an RS3, here's me doing another voiceover, but this time I'm going to sing it like I'm in a heavy metal kind of hardcore band. For all of the details of which RS3 gets what safety tech and equipment, just jump on ReDriven.com and check out that cheat sheet. Okay, so what's the RS3 like to drive? Okay, well, you know what? These things have always been criticised for maybe not having that extra shine and sparkle right at the limit when you're really pushing them really, really hard. But here's the thing, how many RS3 owners genuinely push their RS3s to that point where you can even tell the intricacies of chassis balance and weight distribution? If you're pushing that hard in an RS3, you should be driving on a racetrack. And if you're on a racetrack, you shouldn't be driving an RS3, you should be driving something far more track focused. And also, the people out there that can detect that level of nuance, they're either going to be professional racing drivers or they're going to spend a lot of time at track days. And this is more than enough car on the road for people like that. So if you're there criticising that this thing is not quite, focused enough on the limit, you're a wanker. Therefore, what's the RS3 like here in the real world? Because let's be honest, that's where most of these are going to spend most of their time. You discover very quickly that around town or out here on the open road, any gap that you see that you want to fit your RS3 into, it's yours for the taking. Like I'm talking merging onto the freeway, gaps in traffic, overtaking, flex that right foot and that gap, it's yours. And it does it with absolutely no drama. There's no wheel spin, there's no anti-social fanfare. Simply flick it over into sport, tap down a couple of gears and... Jesus. That gets to the speed limit rather quickly. Like this thing, it can just pull car lengths with the slightest rush of blood, and that's a concern for your license. And my God, it sounds so good when you're up for the rent, which is a good thing because that distracts you from the tiny little rattles and squeaks that can populate the cabin. And also because of its compact size and just incredible dynamics, very few cars this quick are as nimble as this thing, except anywhere but maybe a racetrack. Now, in terms of the ride quality, the last time I drove one of these was when it was brand new. It was a press car, and back then I remember thinking that the ride was it's honestly a bit too firm, but after this many Ks and this many years, I feel like it's softened up the suspension a bit, so the suspension's actually nicely compliant. It's still completely controlled when you're having a go, but it's also really comfortable. And also, thanks to maybe the ride being more compliant, I've got to say the cornering grip is massive. Now look, if you really push it like super hard, it can understeer a little bit, but again, you shouldn't be driving like that on a public road. That's for racetracks only. And also, at the risk of sounding a bit like a car journalist wanker, you can mitigate that understeer by just sort of adjusting your line into the corner. Sorry. Also, the driving modes, they genuinely do make a difference. Like, flick it into comfort and it's exactly that, super comfortable. But then go into like dynamic, or customize the settings yourself, and the RS3 instantly goes into attack mode. Now, we want to introduce some real-world performance testing into our ReDriven review videos. So instead of doing, say, 0 to 100 times, because let's be honest, the amount of times that you do 0 to 100 are going to be minimal at most, and there's very rarely an occasion where that is sensible, legal, or appropriate. So instead, we're going to do 0 to 60 kilometers an hour, because that's what you would do in the real world and around town. And we're also going to do 60 to 100 kilometers an hour, because that's kind of the realistic speed when you're overtaking or merging onto a freeway. Also, in terms of this particular car, because it has launch control and a million different drive modes, we're not going to touch any of that. This is going to be in its most normal mid-range mode, which is dynamic. So look, overall, the RS3 is still brilliant to drive. Okay, maybe at the upper limits it doesn't have quite that sparkle that maybe it should, but for day-to-day use, in a situation like this thing makes you feel like a driving god. I love it. I also love how it can do this level of performance and dynamics, yet it still looks completely understated. It's like a normal car. It's great. Pricing here in Australia currently kicks off from around about $55,000, but honestly, a $55,000 RS3 most likely would have had a hell of a life. At the other end of the spectrum, near new mint condition low kilometer like limited examples like a carbon edition, they're asking around $100,000. But if you feel like spending say $125,000, you can get yourself behind the wheel of something that's been copiously modified, that is like warp speed fast. But if you buy one of those, you're going to need about another $15,000 to $20,000 left over for legal representation. And for pricing internationally, here's a graphic. Audi claim a fuel consumption figure of 8.2 litres per 100 Ks, which you will never see if you have any sort of a Pulse or a Soul. This particular car is seeing 9.8, which is actually pretty good. Audi offered a 3-year unlimited kilometre warranty on all RS3s, which means all but the most recent examples, they're all out of factory support. That's a bit of a concern. Servicing is recommended at every 12 months or 15,000 Ks, and it's absolutely critical that you stick to that. If anything, if you're driving these in the manner that they were designed, or you're doing track days, you should make it even more common than that, like say every 6 months or 10,000 Ks at least. Now, it's time to get a little bit controversial. See, what Audi charge for parts, and even what some Audi dealerships charge for labour, can be on the extreme side. But the thing is, these cars, they share a stack of components with lesser Volkswagen and Skoda models. So you can save yourself hundreds, even at times thousands of dollars by buying the exact same part that just happens to be wrapped in Volkswagen or Skoda packaging. There are even some aftermarket, non-OEM parts that can be cheaper to buy, offer better performance and longer longevity and reliability. So our main point we're trying to get across here is, like, before you go dropping it into an Audi dealership, shop around, because you could save yourself thousands. Even when it comes to labour charges, look, Audi dealerships and European specialist car mechanics, they're going to be charging a premium to work on these things. And look, I get, like, the RS3, it's a complex piece of kit, but it is still just a normal car underneath. So going to a qualified, experienced and quality mechanic, they should be able to work on the car just as well, because underneath this sexy body, there's a lot of Volkswagen Golf underneath. Don't get us wrong, we're not saying just take the car to any old hack, just do your homework, because yeah, with some research, you could save thousands of dollars. Okay, so finally, should you buy one? Well, let's start with why you shouldn't. Basically, look, it's a small high-performance European car that, if not maintained to near obsessive levels, or if it has been treated with minimal mechanical sympathy, may potentially cost a fortune to repair in the future. In terms of driving, look, yes, it gets up to immense speeds so easily, but honestly, do you really genuinely need a car this fast? Like, isn't that just asking for trouble? Plus, in terms of the Sportback variants, 80 to 100,000 Australian dollars, it does seem like a lot of money for a hatchback, no matter how good it is. But that does bring us to how good these things are and why you should buy one. As I said at the start of this video, the RS3 might just be the perfect car. Its incredible combination of skills and how well it executes everything it attempts, while proving so far to be pretty reliable and hold its value when used, is astounding. So, should you buy one? Well, look, it's a yes, but only if A, you can easily afford to buy it, maintain it and repair it. And B, only if the seller can categorically prove that it has been maintained and cared for thoroughly. The RS3 is so close to perfection, but remember, the price of perfection is bloody high. Guys, thank you so much for watching, and what did you think of the RS3? Would you buy one? Would you buy something else? Let us know in the comments. Oh, remember as well, can you hit those like, subscribe and bell buttons and share ReDriven as much as you can? That'd be awesome. See you next time. Once they've got a few years and a few thousand kilometers on them, come on. I'm good today, Sam, this is fine. When they're used, and after thousands of kilometers, can become a bit of, can go horribly wrong. What the f is wrong with me, Sam? Here we go. I get that it's an Audi RS3, but underneath there's a lot of Volkswagen Golf going on. That was the best take you've ever done. The second last word. Okay, here we go. I get that it's an RS3, but underneath all this, there's an awful lot of Volkswagen Golf going on underneath. F you. Yeah, it was really good. And look, yes, the RX3. Can you just come and punch me in the face real quick?